My name is Eugene Goldstein. I'm a lawyer, and I've been practicing immigration law downtown for about 10 years now. It's always been a more fun neighborhood to be in than the coldness of Midtown. The scale is somewhat closer and more human. There may be more small firms and single practitioners down here just because of the nature of the courts being here and various federal agencies being here. But and larger firms probably would tend to locate uptown more than downtown. When one is brought up in central Brooklyn after World War II and see people with numbers on their arms and meet the children of people who have those numbers on their arms and see frequently pictures of bodies being bulldozed into trenches, that makes an impression on a growing child. And living with those kinds of disasters, which are impressed upon you at a very young age, does, I guess in some degree prepare you, or prepare is not the right word, but acculturate you to disasters that do happen, massive disasters that could happen. We live across the river. My wife saw the planes hit the Trade Center from our front window. I was on 14th Street and 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue, where I was running a meeting at that point, and walked downtown right after the meeting fell apart, crossed Canal Street, couldn't get downtown, and walked over into Brooklyn from the Manhattan Bridge. I was concerned about my staff, and I wanted to get down here, but couldn't. But my staff was evacuated from the building as soon as the dust clouds cleared, and walked over the Brooklyn Bridge. Our synagogue had a round robin of phone calls checking up on every member to find out if anybody had been lost. They had not been. There were no losses. There were few losses in Brooklyn Heights because of the demography of who was working in the Trade Center, which nobody had really thought about before. Most of the folks there had come in from the suburbs. But the neighborhood, for several nights, virtually everybody turned out on the, not everybody, but huge numbers of people turned out on the Brooklyn Heights Promenade for spontaneous communal events. It's happened all over the city, but there it was visible. I was actually on the promenade, my wife and I were on the promenade when number 7 came down, and the cloud of dust swept over, and we had to leave, we had masks with us, and that was later in the day, and we had to run from there to escape the dust on that side of the river. I was thinking that one of the things we did shortly after was go up to Zabar's. That's where we find comfort food, and walk around on the west side, where it was somewhat normal. The first week, the building itself, we couldn't get near. It was still a crime scene, and we couldn't get closer than Nassau Street. The second week, the building was vacuumed out and cleaned out from all the dust, for the most part. We still find little bits of it in the corners and such. And then 2 weeks, we were able to get in. Got very uptight and very stressed and very crazy, and tried to keep a law practice together and deal with all of the clients and their needs. Email was very, very helpful, and we were using that quite a lot. Many clients were concerned about, did they still have a living lawyer? And others were concerned that everything was going well. The neighborhood was just limping along, And that's what it is, a neighborhood, with so many of the parts of it, of the structure of it, not just the building structures, but the structures of the neighborhood were not functioning, or were functioning in very odd ways. And it was very difficult having clients coming down here and sitting with people day after day, wanting to express their feelings, which was perfectly normal and perfectly right, and understandable, about coming down here and being here in what was a pathological environment at the time. But over time, and every day or every week, things started pulling back together in little ways. More of the streets started opening. Police presence slackened off. The burning and the smell stopped. More stores opened up. And just about 3 weeks ago, the green market reopened that had been operating by the Trade Center. And when I saw that happening, I also saw that a lot of the people in the neighborhood were just glowing. They were just very happy that this aspect of normality had returned. You know, a monument obviously has to be built, but this is a business area, or it's now a mixed business and residential area, and that was a major business site, and I think that's what it should be again. I don't think it should be just a collection of, you know, very interesting structural steel construct, but an actual business building where things are done in, you know, for business every day. I don't think they should go to the full height because they're just going to be another target. And, you know, what are patterns for? Well, the patterns of our lives and our existence were just totally ripped apart. And with that patterns, one's security and one's mental stability is, you know, part of that. When those patterns are broken, it takes some time to pull back together and stay disciplined and keep going. The link was made for me by statements that were made in news reports of people that were interviewed in a geriatric home in Battery Park City, who had said that they were already through this once. I thought it was very accurate. Again, these were people whose entire environment was destroyed. They had it more seriously and over a much, much longer period, in a much more torturous way. But the destruction of the entire environment and background was there, at least for a short time here. I've since found out that there were distant relatives by marriage who were lost. We visited Prague and saw names on walls. We're both on the New York Regional Board of the Anti Defamation League. It's not a social work agency. It's a civil rights agency and defense agency. And the role that it took was one of trying to develop intergroup contacts and assist Muslim groups in getting through the problems that they were having from, you know, government discrimination and such, which has now been documented. With my practice, working with a lot of different nationalities, I did have some contacts in some groups, and I was able to hear about FBI arrests at gas stations, which were primarily owned by Turkish Americans, and I did mention it to some reporters at the Times, which did look into that seriously, and there was some statistics and such published about the nationalities of people who were arrested. Being around a while in this, I've developed working with the Turkish community, and also I'm working with colleges and universities and medical centers And when students have problems, I work with the students. When students move on to wanting to work here and develop careers here, as some do, I will help them in doing that. And if universities want to bring over faculty to work here, I can do that, and also medical institutions and businesses. I think there has been a lot of fear within all of the Muslim communities. The Turkish community can be accepted from others because the Turkish community will condemn terrorism everywhere, including Israel. Other Muslim communities won't go that distance. So they've been harder to work with. And I think they've been more isolated. There's still a great deal of back and forth between Turkey and the United States. I don't know if there has been, and I would think there has not been, an expansion of people coming from other Middle Eastern countries that are more sensitive and possibly more fearful of how things might be here. The what's called the NSEERS program, under which males from, I believe, 26 Muslim countries had to report to immigration, sent a signal to Middle Eastern countries that these folks shouldn't even be here. And if anything, sent a negative message to everybody, good or bad, not to come. It was very much picked up by the local and Muslim press, and I think there are fewer people coming in. I think the student populations from the Middle Eastern countries are less. International education statistics that I've seen would indicate a lowering of people coming from the Middle East. I think that bringing people here to learn about us is a very positive thing, and that's what international education is all about. New York is a living and breathing entity. It's a great city, and it will continue to grow and evolve. New York can take a hit because of its size and differences in ability to absorb things that many smaller cities or homogeneous cities would be absolutely debilitating and catastrophic. This was obviously catastrophic, but New York is big enough with its, so much variety and such a great depth of abilities and differences that it can kind of compartmentalize these events and move forward, incorporate it, and return to a normality. My personal life, we keep going. We don't have the alternative not to.